Hi, this is Dave Heckroth. You've joined another session of Prolific's Smarter Process Tech Talk. Today, we're going to be reviewing IBM ODM version 8.8 Business Console. We're going to help provide a little bit of a business review for that product, and we sure hope it helps. Before we jump into that, I do want to say a couple of words about Prolifics. For those of you that don't know, or maybe those that do, Prolifics is a global technology solution provider. We create competitive advantage for our customers, organizations around the world by implementing customized end-to-end IT solutions. We leverage capabilities and technologies that include IBM, Microsoft, open source, and we provide a real global delivery model. We've been in business for over 35 years, many satisfied customers. In fact, let me just highlight, since we're talking about IBM today, Prolifics is a leader in the IBM technology space. It has 15 IBM champions. For those of you that don't know, IBM has a champion program where it recognizes innovative thought leaders in the technology community. And with IBM, Prolifics, the company, has more champions, actually more than double its closest competitors. So very much a recognized partner of IBM, and just thought I'd draw that to your attention. Now today we're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about decision management just at a very high level. We're going to get into the IBM ODM version 8.8 product itself, a little bit of an architecture review, a look at the business console. We're going to look at it by way of understanding a sample business challenge that we can all talk about. We're going to view the knowledge. We're going to see a sample call of that application, and we're going to view many of the features inside the product that the business community would be interested in using as they do their work for decision management. So just in an attempt to help us focus a little bit, let me take you through the Prolific Smarter Process solution suite. And I just want to focus your attention on the fact that today we're talking about decision management. I know we've talked about many of these solution suites in past tech talks, but I want to hone you in. I want to filter us down into this area of decision management. And some on the call today might be wondering, well, what is operational decision management? And it's really all about managing business decisions, right? The idea of transforming those business decisions from concepts and ideas in some cases, being able to gather the information from its known sources, put it into systems. Perhaps it already exists today, right? Perhaps you already have a business rules environment, or you have a decision implementation environment, and you're really looking at just making that logic available to your business community so they can make their decisions better, faster, and cheaper. We're really talking about that type of decision management. We want to provide ways in the decision management community to extract and centralize those business decisions, to quickly allow the business to verify and validate the changes they make to their business knowledge. We want to allow the business the ability to make changes at the speed of business, not the speed of IT, because it seems like for so many years, the business and IT have this love-hate relationship where the business has to rely on IT to do all of the implementation for all of their systems work. Well, now what we're saying is we've been able to externalize that business knowledge in a forum that the business community can now take ownership of. It can now manage and maintain that logic, running test suites against that to do the verification, validation, all those type of things, right? Being able to manage their decisions rather than relying 100% on IT. Isn't that a novel concept? You know, somebody once told me that the reason why decision systems, if they are going to fail in their development and implementation process, they do it because the business, the people with the knowledge, cannot verify and validate that knowledge once it gets put into a computer system. The only thing they have to do to audit the results is to be able to run test cases of some kind. They can't really view the knowledge themselves and give it the thumbs up, say, yeah, you know what, this knowledge does reflect the business decision that I want to make. Well, now we have a product like ODM, and we have exposed monitors like the Business Console that really allow the business community to finally take ownership. And with that said, you got to be careful what you ask for, because now the business has a definite responsibility that goes along with it, right? Traditionally, IT has been the one to manage all the system development and migration to its production environment. And now we're really giving the business the opportunity to manage and maintain knowledge. Well, they're going to have to come up to speed on the whole concept of testing. They're going to have to come up to speed on the whole idea of how do I promote my services to a production environment in a way that's responsible and responsive to my business needs and wants from a validation perspective, right? You can't just make a change and throw it up into production with no testing, right? Especially if those systems are critical systems to the business, especially if they have large impact on important things like money and life and things of that nature. So a lot of controls are in place today, typically been influenced by IT and those organizations because of the many lessons they've learned over the years. And those lessons can't fall by the wayside just because the managing of decision systems is transferring itself perhaps from some of the IT coder techno sort of guys over to the business community who is really domain savvy. So just a little comment along those lines. Let's also take another step down into this decision management funnel, and let me help us recognize the fact that there are really two parts of decision management from a capability perspective. One is the BRMS, sort of traditional business rules computing path that we have been doing for many, many years, actually since the late 80s, part of the expert system movement. I don't know if any of you listening were involved in that movement. I actually was. And so it's been a very long time coming to the place we are today, but it's really about gathering those knowledge kernels from the sources that we just talked about, right? Making decisions based on that knowledge and that explicit implementation as rules. And the other side of that equation is being able to make decisions based on what you detect, what patterns you recognize from data. So it's this data recognition which really suggests a next course of action. And that would be this business event processing. That is not the area that we're going to talk about today. But I wanted just to remind us all that there was this whole notion of detecting for a decision and deciding for a decision. And we're definitely talking about the BRMS part. Okay. Now, you might ask, Dave, where do I get the rules, right? If I'm creating a business decision from scratch, where do I get the rules? Well, typically the rules exist in one of three places. And I say typically because, certainly there are exceptions. For the most part, they exist as heuristics in smart domain experts' heads, subject matter experts' heads. We can go through a knowledge acquisition process in order to understand what that is, build models that represent that decision-making capability, DMN, TDM, PDM, all very valid techniques into doing that modeling. And then also that knowledge, those rules, can exist in documentation. Perhaps it's sitting on the shelf. Perhaps it's policies and procedure manuals that an organization has. If systems have already been developed, historical systems that capture the decision-making capability, maybe it's in code, right? Maybe it's part of a legacy system, and it's part of a COBOL application, RPG, PL1, and any number, C++, any number of historical systems that capture and implement business decision-making. Now, I'm not saying that involves some of the capabilities of today with a business rules engine, but certainly business logic can be done in in a form that doesn't have to take advantage of a business rules engine. We just find that when we start to deal with many, many, many rules, that decision engine is a premier execution technique, allows us to also extrapolate that information, put it in a central location, just like we did in the 90s for data technology, right, with DBMS, right? We decided that we're going to externalize the data layer for many applications. Today, we're doing that for the knowledge layer, and business rule management systems are a keen way to do that. I wanted to remind us that when we're talking about decision management and kind of the comparison about with decision management and without decision management, let me just remind us that some of the key elements of with decision management, because we're talking about that today with ODM, we're talking about the natural language, the ability of the domain experts to be able to read the rules, verify and validate the rules. We chatted about that just a minute ago, and really confirm that the knowledge that is being input into a system is in fact what they believe it should be, and indeed is. We're talking about externalizing the rules so they can be easily changed so that the business decision is being made in one place. It promotes a reuse capability. Goes to the third point where we're talking about centralizing business decisions so that if people in the organization want to understand where decisions are being made for the organization, they can go to one place to look to see that knowledge. So I just wanted to offset that against some of the challenges of the past where maybe compelling reasons to consider business rules technology are situations where rules have been written in perhaps a more procedural coding sort of technique, and it can't really be understood very well by the business community, right? You wouldn't expect your domain experts to understand logic that was written in C or COBOL, PL1, any of those, right? That's really the domain of the IT developer sort of people, not necessarily the domain of the business domain experts, right? Oftentimes they're hard-coded in those languages, which makes them hard to change. Even if the business community did know what program they were in and where it was, that still means that you have to have an IT professional understands about coding in that language, the ability to make that change and make sure there's no side effects to making that change, things of that nature. And then, typically the applications that were written yesterday and years before have all of the rules together. And what I mean by that is, business rules, which are those rules part of making a business decision, are lumped in with data acquisition rules, with reporting rules, with orchestration rules. So not all rules are created equal, right? Sometimes there are rules about what process to follow, and that's not really part of your domain expertise. That's really just part of executing a decision in a logical fashion, right? So that wouldn't necessarily be something the business is interested in spending its time managing. Data acquisition rules, right? The fact that data exists in database 123 and the application needs to know how to get it and retrieve it in the most efficient manner. That's not really something the domain expert wants to concern themselves with. They just assume that's something that's going to be done by the application. And so that's why yesterday's programs that had all of that logic pulled together is not really something that we use today when we talk about decentralizing all those capabilities and centralizing just the business logic in an area so they can be reused across the enterprise. So just wanted to remind us all of that. Let's go ahead and take a step. We're going to look at the ODM product version 8.8, and very specifically, let's take just a brief architectural view of that product. Okay, you can see on your screen in the upper left-hand corner, we have really three main components. The light blue area is a piece of the product we call Rule Designer. That's meant primarily for an IT developer type person, somebody who builds the entire interface and the scaffolding of a business decision, along with the rules and all of that. So it's basically a one-stop shop for decision management development, should you choose to go in that direction. And I want to say that this light blue box and the gray box below, the gray box is the rule execution server environment of the products many, many years ago. These were the two components that you had, right? You had a developer-centric view, and then you had an execution server, which allowed us to call a particular decision service from a variety of applications. Well, that still exists today, but we've also added another component, right? We've added this component, which is a server-based product. It's the one in upper right-hand corner. It's in the yellow, and it's called Decision Center. It comprises a number of consoles, and it allows us to have a central repository that is the collection of business decisions and rules that make up those decisions in a central server environment. So you don't have to have any software loaded on your machine in order to manage and update rules. It makes for a more strategic interface in some cases. So that's really the new world view of BRMS systems, being able to have something which is perhaps PC-based, something which is web-based for the masses to be able to update and manage rules, and then, of course, a externalized, highly efficient execution environment, so it can be called in a transactional way, being very performance conscious going forward. So this is the high-level view of IBM ODM. You go to the IBM site, you're going to see something very, very similar to this. And we'll reference this as we talk about the business console going forward. Just to highlight in my drawing, the business console is in this yellow area, right? And it is part of the decision center consoles. There's really two of them. The one we're going to be chatting about today is the business console. Okay, so hang tight, and we'll drop into the demonstration. Okay.